Welcome to Cloudcast, where you get an inside look at St. Cloud, Florida's local government. Whether you live, work, or play here, we're bringing you the information you need to better understand your city. Cloudcast is hosted by our communications team, including Miriam Batchelder, Andrew Sullivan, Deborah Carson, and Jay B. Miller. Thanks for listening in to Cloudcast.
Well, welcome back, St. Cloud. Thanks for joining us again for another edition of Cloudcast. We have with us in studio here today Scott Davidoff, who is our Deputy City Manager, and Stephanie Holtkamp, who is our Parks and Rec Director. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for being in the studio.
Happy to be here.
Yes, very happy to be here.
So we recently announced that we were making some changes to the parking situation, both at our Lakefront Park and to Chisholm Park. And that has certainly generated a lot of conversation around town and on social media. So we're here today to talk about that, to address some of the misinformation that's out there, some misunderstandings, and clear up some of that confusion. So welcome both of you to the studio. Scott, I'm going to throw it to you first. Let's start kind of at the beginning. The city announced that we're going to start having parking fees for vehicles with trailers at our boat ramps. Why did we do this, and what's the reasoning behind that?
Sure, and I think it's really important to understand that this is something that our city council has been looking at over the past 2 or more years. And it really says a lot about the boating community here and how popular the lake is and how the boating community is such a big part of the city.
Right.
And the city council wanted to make sure that they were addressing the continual issue of overcrowding at the boat ramp.
Yes.
They've been dealing with it and the complaints that have been coming, especially from the residents, because they're the ones who are paying the fees, paying their taxes that goes towards maintaining those boat ramps and the facilities that are over there. And it's been increasingly difficult for them to launch their boats and then find a place to park over there.
Okay, so these are residents who live here, pay city taxes, and they get down there with their boat on a Saturday morning and there's not room for them. I know we've talked a little bit about surrounding communities enacting fees on some of their boat ramps to launch. And so maybe we're drawing some people in from outside the city, of course, but also outside Osceola County. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And what the staff has seen down there is that there are boats and visitors from outside of the county, from Orange County, from Lake County, from Polk County, Seminole, that have been coming down to enjoy the beautiful facilities that we have here in St. Cloud. And while it's a great facility and people want to be able to access the lake there and utilize it just like our city residents do, it has been creating a number of problems for those city residents where they get up, expect to go fish, and they can't get out there because they can't find a place to park at the boat ramps, both at Lakefront and at Chisholm Park. Okay,
so these parking fees then were designed to try to address that issue. Talk to me a little bit about how it's envisioned that that's going to work.
Sure. So the city council took a look at it and they've tried a few different things. Then back in January, they held a workshop to look at a couple of different options and solutions. And what they found that was going to be the most effective, they felt, and wanted to enact something with it, was to create a boat trailer parking fee. A little bit different than a use of the ramp fee, because from an operational standpoint, you would have to have somebody sitting there at the ramp monitoring every single person that comes in and out.
Sure.
And that's just not cost effective for our residents. It's a very difficult operational procedure for them to do at that point. So what they decided to do was to model after what a number of other communities have done, where they're only charging a fee for people who are actually parking their trailers that are there.
Okay.
Because that way, if there are a number of people who want to put their boats in and then they find an alternate place to park. A lot of people have friends and family, or they can store their trailer there after they've put in. But we still have that issue for our residents. And again, it's these facilities are paid for by St. Cloud residents who live and reside within the city limits.
Right.
And so those users who are outside of the facility, outside of the city limits, they're utilizing it and taking that space, as well as the damage created from the overuse of those facilities, And all of that is being borne by our city residents. So by doing this, it creates that, those non-residents have to make that decision. Do they still want to utilize this facility? And the hope is that it will open up some space for the city residents to be able to utilize those facilities.
Sure.
And it's very common all throughout the state, all throughout the country, that there are fees associated with boat ramps. And the fee is $6 per day for residents, and
Okay.
it's a simple pay to park. Just about everybody's probably done it. If you've been downtown Orlando, you've been other places throughout the country.
Sure.
You pull up your phone, you can pay right on your phone. It's $6. But for city residents, if you live within the city limits, you can go ahead and purchase an annual pass, and it's only $35 per year. And the year will coincide with the calendar year. So from January 1st through December 31st, it's $35, and you'll be able to utilize that at any time.
And I could park there every day with my boat trailer if I wanted to for that $35
correct.
a year.
For $35 as a city resident.
And let me interrupt you for just a minute again, because as I understand it, for this calendar year for 2025, if you're a city resident and you want to get that annual permit, it's good from now through December 31st of this year, but you can get that at $0 cost if you're a city resident, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
The city council was very clear that they wanted to make sure that this is something new, and as they're rolling it out for city residents, that they have the opportunity to go ahead and get that annual pass. They can go down to the Parks and Recreation Department. They can purchase that annual pass, and for that first year, they'll be able to register for it. They'll get their pass, but there will not be a charge. And then come next year, they'll be able to purchase that at that point.
For that $35.
Right.
And I believe that they were very intentional also in making sure that that price point for city residents was much lower than it is for those who do not live in the city and are therefore paying city taxes. Like we talked about, our city residents are paying city taxes. They're already funding a lot of these programs. Talked a little bit about the pricing structure for people who do not live within the city limits of St. Cloud.
You're right. The council, again, very intentional with that. They want to make sure that the city residents, because they are paying taxes and their taxes, and a portion of that goes towards the maintenance and the facilities that we have here in the city. And the county residents, our friends and neighbors, we all have those friends and neighbors that are there in the county, that they would be able to receive some benefit for that because they are here.
Yes.
So the city council set that fee at $150 for the year for them to be able to purchase an annual pass. However, outside of the county, there's not an option for them to purchase an annual pass. They would just have to pay the daily $6 rate.
Okay, so if a boat owner lives in, like you were saying, Orange County, Lake County, Polk County, they like to come over to our lakefronts, they can't get the annual pass at any cost. They'll just pay the daily parking rate.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
What's interesting is, obviously, you said the right word. It's created some conversation since the council approved this at the council meeting. And it's been interesting going through there. And I think it says a lot about the city and the job that city staff does, that we take a look at all of those comments and want to make sure that we're addressing it accurately, making sure that we're clear on the information that's being delivered to everyone, and
Right.
everything can be confusing at first when it's new.
Of course, yes.
And-
And the more things kind of get talked about, somebody says, I think it's this, and then that just sort of takes off.
Yep.
But and I know a couple of those things that we've seen is that, it's a ramp usage fee, and I know you've addressed that. It's not a usage fee for the ramp. If I own a boat and I go put it in the lake and my friend lives 2 blocks away, I can go put my boat trailer
Yep.
and vehicle in their driveway, for example,
Absolutely.
right? So I can still launch free of charge with or without a permit. It's the parking that's being charged.
Correct.
And then another thing is we have not launched this fee yet. May 23rd is our date that it goes live, which is a Friday. So you can still, right now, it's still business as usual, but you can come to the city and go ahead and get, if you're a city resident, that parking permit that covers you for unlimited boat with trailer parking at either Lakefront or Chisholm through the end of this calendar year.
Right. And we've already had people
Yeah,
who have been purchasing them.
Yeah, just today we had eight city residents and one non-resident that came in and paid his fee.
Okay.
So we know the message is getting out there.
Yes.
But you're right. On social media, you see how it works, where things are so far below the original post, and sometimes there could be something that was not accurate that's there, and then that's the first thing that somebody sees, and they continue going on there. So this is a great opportunity for us to be able to address some of those questions and some of the things that we've seen.
Right. And we've talked internally that some of these fees we're going to be able to use as a city to further enhance the improvements and the facilities at both of these, Lakefront Park and Chisholm Park. We've got improvements going on right now to the ramp at Chisholm Park. Talk a little bit about what's going on there and more importantly, what's coming.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important and was one of the big things that we've seen on the post, and some of the comments that have been on there was specifically about Chisholm Park. Yeah. So, little history, Chisholm Park used to be a county park.
Right.
And then in 2016, the county deeded Chisholm Park over to the city of St. Cloud. So Chisholm Park is a St. Cloud park. With that, when they did that, there was no fee that was associated with that. And the county does not provide any dollars. There's no funding. There isn't anything that the county pays to the city of St. Cloud for the overall maintenance and upkeep of that facility.
So let me get this straight. They're deeding it over to us for probably, $1, $5, something like that. So now it's a city park, but we're kind of taking it in as-is condition. For example, like to relate it to any other used thing you're buying, right? So so we get it as is. So whether it was in pristine condition or whether it needed upgrades, and obviously any park needs consistent ongoing upgrades and upkeep. So we've been responsible for that since that time.
Yeah, and it's important, when the city is very grateful, and Chisholm Park is a wonderful facility, and people enjoy that park, enjoy the boat ramp there, enjoy the fields, picnicking out there.
It's a beautiful park.
It really is, and it's a wonderful facility, but parks have fees to upkeep them.
Yes.
And there's a lot of maintenance that's involved with that, specifically when you have boat ramps. And it was not in the best condition, and city staff did a great job making it last as long as it has. But that's why right now the city has got a major project going on. It's costing the city approximately $477,000 to redo the boat ramps over there at Chisholm Park.
And that's under construction right now.
Correct. That's under construction right now. And Stephanie, we're estimating that will be completed by the end of June.
That's correct. They'll be open for 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say we're guaranteeing, right, Stephanie? But we want it open for 4th of July weekend because we've obviously got the lakefront ramp closed for fireworks and so forth that day. So.
And right now everything is on schedule.
Yes.
And fingers crossed, a little bit ahead of schedule. So that's something that the city is doing right now and fixing that ramp, making those improvements in there, which is something that the community has been asking for a long time. As soon as we took it over, that's been some of the complaints that the city has received. So working on getting that done. And there is also additional work that's going to be done over there where we're in the design phase right now for additional repairs to the park itself. And so that's going to include the parking area. We've seen a lot of complaints about that. Those are big ticket items that have been in the planning stages, and sometimes government doesn't move as fast as we would always like it to.
Right.
And there's a lot of hoops to jump through, especially with facilities along the waterways. However, that project is moving along as quickly as it can. Actually, we're pretty pleased with how quickly it's moving right now. So it's in the design phase right now, and we hope to get that out to bid in the next couple of months. And there'll be some major improvements that people are really going to enjoy out there.
And we're talking about paving. Like, is it going to be a paved parking area for these vehicles with boat trailers, those types of things?
Yeah, there'll be paved parking with an additional 35 trailer spot. That includes 4 handicap trailer parking spots.
Great. Okay.
And then an additional 120 vehicle parking that will be separate from trailer parking, because I know there's been people have concerns of that vehicles and trailers block each other in. So we're addressing that issue as well.
Right. So we've got, it sounds like, some really nice improvements coming to Chisholm Park that are going to be a big benefit to our residents and to just boaters in the area.
There are some other things, too, that we saw from the comments that were online and some of the things that people were talking about that, certainly wanted to address as well. People were talking about that all of the parking there along Lakeshore was going to be paid. That's not something
true.
that's part of this.
Correct.
I know there were some comments about the state streets, and that's something that staff is very cognizant about. And so there have been additional signs that have been posted on those state streets there, letting them know that vehicles with trailers, with boat trailers specifically, because
Yes.
a lot of people have trailers that are, working out in the fields. And
Your lawn care guy shows up, he's
Exactly.
not going to get towed or ticketed.
Right. So,
yes.
it's very intentional what staff has done to make sure that it addresses those concerns. And we understand that it's a change for how people have gone about their daily lives, but it's something that, for city residents, it's going to create a more positive experience for them and address those complaints. One of the other things that has been interesting from last week's council meeting that was discussed a lot was actually not related to the boat ramp itself, but was related to jet skis, where part of the problems out there have been from jet ski operations that should not have been out there. Currently, city code doesn't permit any sort of commercial businesses to be operating down at the parks, especially down at the lakefront. And there have been businesses that have been operating, renting jet skis or kayaks, canoes, things of that nature.
So they've just been setting up at the lakefront, unpermitted, unauthorized.
Correct.
And that's creating a lot more of this congestion and kind of overcrowding at the ramp and at the lakefront.
Absolutely. Okay. And the city council has heard those complaints, and they want to be able to address those complaints. But they also know that people want to be able to utilize those services.
Right.
So what the council did was they just approved an ordinance that makes it accessible for those types of businesses to operate under a set type of guidelines. So it's really going to ensure the safety of everyone. Things such as these businesses all have to be licensed and insured, which is a big thing because nobody wants to rent something that can cause serious injury and damage from an unlicensed business that you have no idea who they are, if they know what they're doing or not.
Right.
Making sure that all these businesses are following all the state guidelines. And so that ordinance now has created a system to ensure the safety and more orderly operation down at the waterfront and the lakefront that really is going to make it a better experience for everyone. And that's what the city council wanted to do.
And I think that's key to all of this is these actions are all, the central nugget of all of this is council is trying to take care of city residents, respond to complaints and concerns that we've had ongoing. And you mentioned the signage that's been put up on the state streets already. So if a boat operator is going to go launch down there, and now they've got their vehicle with the trailer and they don't want to pay the $6 or they don't want to have the annual permit, they may think, I'm just going to go park on one of the state streets. And if you're a resident down there, you don't want that. Now they're blocking your driveway or your mailbox or what have you. So, again, the city has responded proactively to help head off some of those issues at the past because, again, we're looking out for our city residents first and foremost.
Absolutely. And it really is a domino effect because once you make one change, staff really does a phenomenal job of taking a look at how will one change impact something else.
Yes.
It doesn't operate in a vacuum.
Right.
And those are the types of things that the council wants to make sure of, that we're taking a look at, how we're dealing with our city residents, how we're dealing with our visitors, and how those impacts are going to impact the daily lives of everyone who lives here in St. Cloud, and trying to make it as positive of an experience as possible so that everyone leaves with the best taste possible in their mouths.
Right, right. And speaking of kind of make it as seamless as possible with the payment, it's going to be done through an app. So people can either have an app downloaded on their phone or they can just go onto a website and they'll pay digitally, electronically that way. Talk a little bit about how that process works. So how will, say, a code enforcement officer or a law enforcement officer or a park ranger, how will they know that I've paid for my parking? Obviously, if I have the parking permit, that's a no-brainer, right? But how do they know I came in and I paid my $6 daily fee?
Yeah, and the system that the park staff and Stephanie was able to find after taking a look at, there's a number of companies that do this. Right. And they research them to find the company that would best fit our needs, because it's not a one-stop shop for everything. You've got to find exactly what fits our needs the best. Yes. So city staff found a option for a program that makes it really easy for what you're talking about, for the police, for code enforcement, for park rangers, for any city staff. So they have their own app that they show who's paid by license plate, so they can just walk through and see if somebody has paid or if not. And if they haven't, they'll get a citation.
Yes. Okay.
Nobody wants those.
So this, again, it's all tied to the app. It makes it seamless on our end. When you're paying for the parking down there, you'll put in your license plate number, or you put in what zone you're parked in.
Correct.
And that now links to what our code enforcement, law enforcement, and our park rangers have. So, and I will say, again, on the note of staff looking out for our residents and working with a parking vendor that really is top-notch and is going to provide great service for us. One of the things that we had originally talked about on the signage there in the parking lot for these trailers is to put a QR code. So you just scan the QR code, and now you can go to the app and pay. And the vendor said, whoa, time out. We've had issues where bad actors would come along and put a different QR code sticker on your sign. I'm not a criminal. I would never think of it. But it's brilliant, because if I want to scam money, I just put a sticker over that QR code with another QR code. And now it's easy for me to, somebody to think that they've paid when in fact they've just funneled money to some scam artist, right? So we have not and will not be putting QR codes for that very reason. It's going to be a specific website that they go to or the app that they use.
Again, especially in this time of security and cybersecurity, that's something really important that the city wanted to make sure of, that this was as clean of a process and as safe of a process as possible. And this company has been around, has done this in many, many places in many different areas. So that's something that everyone who's doing this can certainly feel secure in the fact that when they're utilizing the service, it's being utilized the right way.
And their information is
Yes.
safe. Correct. Great. Stephanie, tell me where people can go to get the parking permit for city or county residents for their vehicles with trailers.
Yes, that's a great question. They can go to the Civic Center, which is located at 3001 17th Street. It's the building that's connected to the pool. They go around to the front office, and the girls there can help them.
Okay, and just to re-clarify, if you're a City of St. Cloud resident, you live within the City of St. Cloud, for this calendar year through the end of December 2025, there's no fee for that permit if you're a city resident. And if you live within Osceola County but outside the city limits, that fee is $150, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and then come January, when it's time to renew it, the fee for city residents will be $35 for the year for unlimited parking, and the county resident $150
That's correct.
for the year. Okay, great, thank you. And we touched a little bit also on the watercraft rental businesses. If those businesses are looking to get a permit to operate at our lakefront, how do they do that?
They would head over to the community center located on 17th Street, but that address is 3101 17th Street, and they can talk to Lori Christie, who's a facility supervisor, and she also oversees the marina boat slips.
Okay, so she can help them with the paperwork and that process of the documentation we need of their insurance and so forth.
Correct.
Okay, great. Well, thank you both for joining us in studio today. I think this has cleared up a lot of confusion that may be out there about these things, and we understand these are new, it's change, and it takes people a little while to get used to and really to understand what we're doing and why. Bottom line, I think what we've heard is it's all about putting our city residents first and trying to create a better overall experience for our residents. So, Scott, Stephanie, thank you so much for being here today with us. And we will see you all again next time on Cloudcast.
That's it for this edition of Cloudcast. Don't forget to like, follow, rate, and review, and we'll see you next time on Cloudcast.